Right here. Right here. All right, we're on. We're live. It is the 22nd of May, 2022, and this is the SitRep for today. My name is Stuart, or Gads. This is Ragnarok Survival, obviously, that you're watching. And this is the SitRep, where I go through stories that I've found in the past. Well, what will today be the last 48 hours, because I didn't do one yesterday, because I couldn't be fucked, is the technical term for it. Cannot be fucked. So I didn't do one yesterday. Apologies if you were sitting there with bated breath waiting yesterday for some weird bearded guy to come on and speak at you. But I don't know, I just couldn't be stuffed yesterday. Oh, plus it was our, day of democracy, where we got to go exercise our democratic powers as individuals in Australia and cast forth our vote and get the result, where we wake up this morning on a Sunday morning and find out that our Prime Minister is no longer. Scotty from marketing got the boot. See you later, bro. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And we got the elbow. Anthony Albanese, by the looks of it. I don't know. Last I saw, I'm well aware that the neither of these two arse clowns are arse clowns that I'm voting for. The arse clown that I voted for and usually vote for, I know will never get into power, but so I'm not super like, oh, I'm very interested. I study it. I look at who the people are. I look at their policies. I vote based on policies that align with me, and that's my little form of democracy. But yeah, I'm well aware that the people that I vote for are probably not going to get in anytime soon. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm hoping for, last I saw, it wasn't a fully formed government. I think they need 76 to gain power, and they had 73. And people are saying they'll probably get those last 3 seats. But it appeared that there was a number of independents that got in there, which gives me a bit of heart. Independents, I think, create diversity. Diversity is what democracy is built on. So hopefully there's at least some electorates out there that aren't within the two-party system, and so then can help their constituents have a better say in the government. Mine, however, not so much. One of those big parties, the big red one. Anyway, hey Dan, how you going? I was here. I just really couldn't be stuffed. to be honest, I'd just done like 14 days of work in a row, pretty much. It was just like, I'm taking a day off. I'm having a day. But the news cycle does not stop, and the things that interest me do not stop. And so now, as a result, there is a lot of stuff to go through. So I will go through it in no particular order. Let's start off with some Russian propaganda talking about China. And they're saying China proposes expansion of BRICS, and then does not give any sort of link to this. No story, just a headline that says China proposes expansion of BRICS. For those who don't know what BRICS is, it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, I would also say there are a number of different forms of this alliance. These are 5 countries now that hold the world's majority of human beings, the majority of land, and I think the majority of resources as well. So if these 5 countries now were to sort of get together and become like really tight, it'd be a force to be reckoned with. Just in India and China alone, I think, we've got, we're kind of heavy on humans in those 2 areas. But you think about the size of China, the size of Russia, the size of Brazil, and India. South Africa is not exactly a small country, but, we're looking at those 5 countries there that have a huge amount of resources between them. And if they decide, which it looks like it's heading this way, and it's being forced by the US, if they decide to get together and go, look, we're not playing this game anymore. We're taking our bats and balls and we're going to go play our own game. I think the rest of the world will have to be like, all right, we kind of got to go march along with them. There's not much we can do about that. But anyway, that's an interesting little tidbit that flew up there. I'm like, oh, what's more on this? And there's nothing to link to. There's unsubstantiated reporting. So, but it makes sense to me too. When I'm looking at that, it definitely makes sense to me. The only hope I think flying in that is that Russia capitulates and capitulates hard. And that sort of shows the world like, whoa, yeah, okay, don't mess with the world bullies. I mean, the world police, USA. Who's this from? Oh, Bloomberg. Sorry, my phone was actually in the way of my screen, so I couldn't. Bloomberg has released a story where they've used the title, "The Age of Scarcity Begins," with 1.6 trillion hit to world economy. So looking at the world economy, where it's heading, and by all markers now where it is heading, it is lower. Except if we're talking about inflation, which it is higher. Everyone is predicting less money in the system, more hard times coming, less food out there, less resources out there flowing around, more inflation, more increase in prices. So, you know, these are the big kids starting to talk about this now. Mainstream media, big banking firms, big financial firms, a lot of hedge funds are looking at the future and they're going, all right, we're going to start talking about it, because they've 100% known. There's no way. If you look at what they've been doing, what most of them have been doing, you can see that they've known, and they've started to do a couple of things like, oh, we're just going to buy a little bit of gold, like a whole heap of gold. I'm blanking on the name. It's not Raytheon. It starts with P. Anyway, they went and bought a whole heap of gold last year. We've seen a number of companies buying into like these sorts of sectors, buying into things that are a bit more solid, buying things that are a bit more recession proof, while still saying like everything's great, everything's cool, and they're still investing in things because there's still money to be made. But they're riding this one to the bitter end, I think. Anyway, they're now marking that the bitter end is here. Let's see what happens there. It's going to be an interesting one. All right, let's skip over that for now. China in talks to buy cheap Russian oil for strategic reserves. Why wouldn't you? You know, if there's cheap oil out there, go and buy it. That's economics 101, I guess. Strategic reserves. This is something that's probably going to be needed. And if China looks like they're going to do what we all think they're going to do, which is take Taiwan, and that's going to lead into an extended war. I almost said world war. It will, but I was trying to like shirt around that. I won't shirt around it anymore. It's going to lead into an extended war, an extended world war. Then they're going to need some backups with them. And as I was talking about a couple of days ago, they've already got what looks to be about 2 years worth of grain stored up for their population. And, you know, why wouldn't they start to build up things like oil as well? I mean, they've already got built up oil. They've already got built up gold reserves, as does Russia. An unknown amount in China, but probably a lot. Sousa headquarters. Shout out. How you doing? Yeah, so interesting stuff. Along with, and this again, reports coming from Bloomberg here. So, you know, we're starting to see this BRICS alliance, or that's sort of the resource or the economic-based alliance that we're seeing, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. We're also seeing another alliance starting to loosely form, which is probably around anti-Western sentiment, which is more North Korea, China, Iran, Russia. And you could probably throw in a couple of other countries in there, like Venezuela. You might even say Brazil could be in there as well. And there's a few others, you know, Cuba's, you know, long-standing member of that alliance, or of that sentiment, I should say. But, you know, they're not in an alliance. There's no axis of evil here. It's just like they're the kids who didn't get picked for the team, as far as USA is concerned. And so now they're all looking at each other and go, like, do you want to form a team? Do you want to hang out? Like, let's make some nukes and shit and see what we can get done here in this world. So that's what we're seeing at the moment, is this economic one come up, and alongside it, more of a military one might be, or an anti-Western one is also forming there, these alliances. There's something to keep our eyes on because, as I said, the BRICS in particular, that's got a lot of clout behind it. That's not a little tiny sort of blip on the radar, somebody swinging above their weight. That's somebody who is really stepping up. All right, number of stories here, and I should have really organized this morning. I didn't. They're all over the shop. But I want to talk about Europe and what's happening in Europe, especially around Finland, Sweden coming into NATO, and let's talk about Turkey and Greece as well. Basically, what I want to tell you here is, again, we think of the UN, we think of NATO, we think of these like homogenized forces, alliances that are moving in the same direction. And the indicators that I see are anything but that. I mean, there is definitely the momentum is with that kind of like pro-US, anti-Russian sort of sentiment within both of those organizations. To a certain extent, obviously more NATO than UN, but they're the kind of more military slanted organization. So we've got NATO, we've got Finland saying, yes, we want to join, here's the paperwork. We've got Sweden going, wait for me, I'm coming in too. And then we've got Turkey down the bottom going, whoa, pump the brakes there, pump the brakes there, guys. Finland, Sweden, we don't want you in. Well, why? Why is that? Why would Turkey not want Finland and Sweden in? What has it got anything to do with anything? And why don't we just go like, well, it'd be more beneficial to have Finland in, wouldn't it? Why don't we just boot Turkey? How aligned are Turkey to our needs anyway? Because Turkey have done a lot of things where we're kind of like, you really on the NATO side? Or are you kind of playing your own game here? They are playing their own game. And they're using this one particularly well as a tool to play their own game. So let's go into a place that I know and love, northern Syria right now. Northern Syria is right up against southern Turkey, for those of you who don't know your geography too well. Northern Syria got a lot of issues going on there, namely war happening all throughout Syria. And just so a kind of a weird, all right, this is an irresolute picture of Syria, but let's say they've got civil war. There's a lot of shit that's going on in there, but the war is kind of Syria itself, where we think about the bad dictatorship regime and who's playing what side in that. That's kind of like you're looking at your west sort of Syria in your your civilized, your populated areas. Up the north, you got the Rojava area. Now, these people are, I would say, this is more Kurd. All right, this is Kurdistan. If anything, it's almost a breakaway region of Syria. So it's called Syria. Everyone's in agreement. It's totally Syria, except the people there. They're like, are we Syrian? Or they don't actually really identify even as Syrian. When I was up there, they were more like, no, we're originally the original Persian, I guess, if you want to say anything, people, but we are Kurdish. That's who we are. Anyway, number of organizations in there you may have heard of, the YPG, the PKK, things like that. Now, when I was there, they were digging in trenches, and I said, "Why are you digging in trenches? And why are you digging them in this way? Isn't the enemy the other side of your country?" And they said, "Yeah, they're bad, but also these guys are bad." I'm like, "Turkey?" And they're like, "Yeah, Turkey's going to annihilate us. Turkey is out to wipe out Kurdish people, like genocide, destroy us." That's what I don't know if this is true or not, 100%, but this is their belief. They 100% think that they are in a war with Turkey. So they're acting as such. Now, that apparently plays out as incursions into Turkey. And Turkey looks at that and go, here's some terrorist organizations that are attacking us from beyond our borders. So we're justified in going in there and wiping them out. Anyway, again, a little highlight on, well, hang on, there's more stuff than Ukraine going on in the world. Yeah, like I keep saying, there's wars going on all over the fucking world. But the blind spot, the Western blind spot being the Middle East, we often don't pay attention to these things. Anyway, these people here who are fantastic people and who have a right to live and, are struggling to survive there in this battle here. And they're actually being supported financially by Finland and Sweden, which is an odd thing. And to be honest, I don't fully grasp it, but there must be some powerful lobbies or something that are going on in Sweden and Finland who are pumping it in here, and there must be some connection that I haven't quite researched well enough yet to get my head around. But they're doing it. So now Finland, Sweden say, I want to join NATO, and Turkey's like, pump the brakes, son. Back the truck up. Remember all that money that you're giving to these terrorists who are attacking our country? That stops. That stops now. You got to stop doing that. I think we probably will see Finland and Sweden just stop doing it. They'll just go, okay, yeah, fine. YPG, not our problem. Good luck down there. It was fun for a while, but you're off the Christmas card. Let's see you later. And they'll be allowed into NATO, which is then going to cause a whole heap of other problems with Russia and how they retaliate. But this is the way it's going. But that's essentially what I see is happening there. Just in case you're sort of curious, because I've just seen a number of stories pop up and they don't seem to explain it. They just say Turkey's saying, you can't do that, stop it, you're funding terrorism. And I'm like, do you want to tell the story there of what's actually going on? It's quite a complex little story, and I think people shouldn't actually understand that. Because if Turkey wanted to enough, they could put the kibosh on this. They could stop it. Totally. That's within their power, and that's the way NATO works. NATO has to kind of like give thumbs up everywhere for member states to become part of them. So that's what I see it's going on there. Turkey's also really worried about Greece. Another sidebar. You remember me talking about Greece just gave the thumbs up for American bases, 3 of, to extend their contracts there and keep US forces within Greece, which looked like, which was, the reason for it was, well, we need to secure the Mediterranean at the moment because we've got Russia here, blah, blah, blah. So, yep, we want these forces here. Well, Turkey's come out and in another sort of disagreement with NATO, has said that the influence of Greece, who might soon lay claim to most of the Aegean Sea. So Turkey's saying, you're trying to own the Aegean Sea over here. We don't like that. Obviously, Turkey has some plans in the Aegean Sea as well. So we can see that you're allowing US forces onto your country, onto your soil, to set up bases, to set up people there. No, we're not about that. So yet another thing where Turkey's kind of going like, nah, this is not working out for us. So why not just boot Turkey out? Well, that's the entire southern flank of Russia, of the NATO alliance up against Russia. Okay, without that, I think there's a pretty key thing that kind of disappears, and it paves the way for not only there to be a neutral or non-friendly country there in that space where Russia can start to move, but it actually paves the way for Turkey to flip and decide that, like, hey, actually Russia's offering some cheap oil at the moment, and they've got wheat, and they've got a few fertilizer things and stuff like that. Maybe we go over there. What does that matter? Well, it matters because then the one passage that gets from the Mediterranean up to Ukraine, that little lake area, it's not a lake, it's a sea, just sitting below Ukraine, is through Istanbul, is through Turkey. So without that, they can shut that off entirely and say, nope, no one moves from here. And that's that. So something interesting to watch. Are we seeing the Trojan Battle Part 2, Greece versus Turkey? I think, was Troy in Turkey? It feels like it is. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was more like Syria or something. Anyway, tensions within NATO. Again, not as homogenized as we might think sitting here in Australia, looking from the outside in. All right. More Russian propaganda coming out that, this is from Russian propaganda, but they are quoting the UN Secretary General talking about global food security, who said, quote, Let's be clear, there is no more effective solution to the food crisis without the reintegration of Ukrainian food production, as well as food and fertilizer produced by Russia and Belarus into world markets. So, the Secretary General of the UN there coming out and basically laying it out, like what we've been saying for a long time now, all of us been talking about and thinking about is like, yeah, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. This has a pretty dramatic effect on world food supply. So they've come out and said it, and they said, look, without getting these guys back integrated into the system, we're going to have problems. We're going to have big, big problems. How likely do you think that is to happen anytime soon? I think it's highly unlikely, personally. So I think there will be a sustained food crisis coming out of here. That's going to be long lasting. And I've said this a couple of times about a few issues that even if we stopped it and everything went back to normal tomorrow, what we're going to still feel is probably at least 12 months, if not, I would say 3 to 4 years worth of effects based on what's already happened. But things aren't going to flip back on tomorrow. Things aren't going to flip back on next week. They're not even going to do it next month. We're talking about at least 6 more months of, I don't know, sustained problems in this area, if not years. And so the effects that we're going to be seeing are going to be, in my opinion at least, decades long, or decade long, might be a better way to put it. And so, I'm not saying that from a doom and gloom kind of perspective. I'm just saying, like, let's just be realistic and look at how things are and how things operate. And then again, think about what we can do as human beings to actually best prepare ourselves for these sorts of eventualities. Okay, so there's going to be less food in the world. The food that we have in the world is going to be more expensive. So logically speaking, what should we be doing as human beings to counter that? Well, if food is going to cost me more, then maybe I should start producing some of my own food. If food goes up 15%, can I grow 15% of my own food to at least negate that cost? And 15% of your own food is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. But this is where we should start to be thinking, especially when we start to look at other examples around the world that are unfolding right now. If I jump back to Turkey is not in a good way financially. They're in a bad way, a very, very bad way. And I was having a discussion on Instagram with one of my sources who lives over in the area, and they were talking about how it's finally coming out that Turkey, it's kind of obvious when you look at like the economic situation over there, but Turkey's been cooking the books big time. So they've been talking about how much inflation. I think I've got the data on this somewhere. Okay. They've been talking about inflation, but it actually looks like it's probably up around 70%, despite what they've been saying. So they've just had their, where are we? No, sorry, 70% was the actual rate that they've put out. And you remember me talking about this, 50% is the official hyperinflation benchmark. So once you hit 50% inflation, you're now in a state of hyperinflation. They're at 70%. So they're well in there. Nope, turns out wasn't 70%. Some groups are estimating it is anywhere as high as 157% inflation in that country. Like, that is horrific. And the dude who was in charge of statistics just stepped down. He was like, I'm out. I quit. You caught me. I'm gone. See you later. So he's stepped down. The polite way of saying he's probably running for his life right now. But yeah, he's gone. By the way, I've been lying and I'm out. Mic drop. See you later. Have fun, motherfuckers. I'm out. That country's, I don't know. I think they're at the state of collapse. And as I was saying, like why I led off with this whole like Turkey stopping Finland, Sweden, Turkey worrying about Greece and that, and then I said, hey, why don't they just boot Turkey out and say we're not listening to you anymore? Is because they're a linchpin. They're very, very important from a strategic standpoint of where they're sitting right now, where NATO is sitting, what their future plans are to try and envelop Russia. And without Turkey, they're in trouble. And so Turkey now is in its own trouble. And this is actually due to the policies that their prime minister, president, I think it's president in Turkey, to his policies of what he's been doing. So yeah, and like I said, if this country destabilizes, this could be a real game changer for what's going on. Russia clearly, like, they're one country. They're not exactly a super rich country, or they don't have the military might to take on combined NATO forces for an extended period of time. Eventually, they'll lose, right? And unless things change, the status quo, Russia will run out of whatever, and things will lose. But no one's looking at status quo anymore, because we now know that things change, and they can change. And this is one of those things that you should be looking at and going like, that's a game changer. That could change things dramatically. And that will change the entire Europe situation as well. And as I keep saying, does food prices does shortage of food in Europe affect the food that we have here in Australia? No, it does not. And we are still insulated from the effects, but we are not insulated from the effects of a global economy whereby, here's a great example. I've got 2 petrol stations in my town. Now, one of them is a family-owned sort of run thing, and they get their petrol at whatever price they have to get it at. And the other one is a Shell. Every single day, the Shell looks up the street and looks at what their prices are, and then just sets their prices 1 cent cheaper on everything. It doesn't matter what Shell is buying their petrol for, their petrol products for. They always are guaranteed 1 cent cheaper than the guys up the road. So that's kind of how global economics work to a certain extent. If you can get away with it, people will. And so if people are looking at it and going like, well, the price of food worldwide of wheat products has gone up, and people in Germany are paying 300% more for their wheat products, for their bread, that eventually will filter down to Australia, where freaking Tip Top or whatever will look at it and go like, well, why are we selling it $2 a loaf when we could, when they're buying it for $6.50 a loaf? How about we put ours at $5 at least? That still looks cheap on a world scale. Plus, we make a bit more profit. So that's how we're going to get affected from that. Increase in food prices, and especially within that, within the Anglosphere, within Europe, filtering down to us. That's my opinion, at least. I think Australia is probably more affected by the prices of wheat in England than it is in somewhere closer, like Iran, for example, where flour has gone up 300%. They're in the grips of massive riots at the moment. There's protests. They're spreading. They're getting worse, apparently. So this is what happens. People don't eat, and they start to riot. Now, I often say it's 3 days, right? And I think I need to revise this. 3 days, I say 9 meals. Civilization is 9 meals away from collapse. But if I revise this down, I think about it a bit. Like, I've gone 3 days without eating on multiple occasions. And so that's probably my adjustment of where I am. I'm like, yeah, 3 days. After 3 days, I might start going mental. I'm not a normal human being, apparently. 3 meals. 3 meals is what the actual saying is. I heard someone else say it the other day. I'm like, oh, what? 3 meals? I thought it was 3 days. 3 meals. If a human goes without 3 meals, then they start to turn violent. And civilization turns to anarchy. So that we're talking about 1 day to the next. It was a Friday. We had some food. Then we woke up on Sunday, and there's rioting in the streets. We're destroying the place. That's how long we've got. And when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that actually sounds probably more correct. So yeah, Iran. This is another one of these effects that we're seeing, and I keep pointing these out. Look at Sri Lanka. Look at Peru. Look at now Iran. Look at Pakistan. Look at what's happening in these countries, and start to extrapolate that out. These effects are going to get worse. As I said, all these effects are going to start to happen around the world, and it's going to increase tension. It's going to increase instability within our world. So it is up to us as individual human beings to start taking that responsibility back onto our own backs and say, I want to secure my future. And this is not like some ad for a superannuation account or something. This is the real shit. This is, I want to secure my own food supply. I want to secure my own water supply. I want to secure my own security. I want to secure my own shelter. I want to know how to survive. I want to know how to do the things so that if times do get worse, I am okay, that I can feed myself, that I can feed my family. I can still put food on the table for my family. And then my family can help the community, and that our community can look after ourselves and each other. And personally, I think that's about the limit that we should really be thinking about, is community-based thinking. Not what's happening over the other side of our country, not or necessarily, like, you can think about it, it concerns us, but really, what we should start doing is bring back down to the lowest common denominator, to the closest point we can, and that's us. It's our own selves. Look after yourself primarily. If you look after yourself, then you have the ability to look after other people. You have the ability to be an asset. If you don't look after yourself, then you're a burden on everyone else, especially when times get tough. You become the liability. So it's not like, okay, we've got somebody who's injured here. I always teach this. I was teaching courses for last week, and this was one of the things that came up I was teaching some like TCC protocols for first aid. So it's like tactical type stuff, tactical emergency casualty care. And I'm talking about, I'm going like, the first person that you really need to think about is yourself. Always be thinking about yourself. And it's not a selfish sense that we're talking about here. It's more that if there's an emergency and somebody is injured, well, I don't want two people injured. If I'm here and I'm well and I'm okay and I've sorted myself out, then I can render first aid to that person. If I also get injured, though, if I don't look after myself, not only can I not help and be an asset here, but now there are two people that somebody else has to look after. So we extrapolate this out in our own lives. How are you being an asset and not a liability? How are you actually setting yourself up so that you can look after yourself primarily and then look after others, i.e. family and community? Something to think about today. Here's some good news. I like good news when it comes in. Indonesia lifts palm oil export ban as supply improves. I mean, it's kind of like double-edged sword news, because palm oil, should you really be using that? I don't know. But anyway, I don't use it. I talked about how the world's biggest exporter of palm oil, Indonesia, recently shut down, and we've been seeing that happen all over the world as we start to close in, like countries start to close in their borders and solidify their own supply of their own stuff for their own people. That people need to start thinking about this. Oh, where does my butter come from? Where does my meat come from? Where does my apples come from? Where does this box of cereal come from? We need to start thinking about this, because as countries start to shut down and export less, that's going to have an effect where we can't get the things that we need or want. But they've looked at it, they had a bit of a freak out, and they've opened up exports now again as supply improves from the outside looking in. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what other forces are going on here. This could have been a huge pushback from an economic standpoint, where producers of palm oil have said, look, if you stop us exporting palm oil, we're not going to be able to make enough money, because generally speaking, exports make more money than domestic production for things like this en masse. So Australian beef is a great example. Australian dairy is a great example as well. Australian, any sort of meat, pigs. it's rare actually within Australia that we get the creme de la creme of our own animals because we get paid so much more for it over in, say, China or Japan. So off they go over there. They get the creme de la creme. We get the big bucks, and then the Aussies will eat the next step down. It's like, who cares? We're not that fancy that we need all the Wagyu beef. We can give some of it away, all the good stuff away. So that's how it works, and I would imagine something's similar's gone on here. But good news for the world, because there are a lot of human beings that rely on palm oil. I think it's actually the most used oil, edible oil on the face of the earth right now. Oh god damn, there's a lot of stories today. I'm just gonna get to some good ones, some juicy ones. All right. Let's open this one up. Monkeypox. Let's talk about monkeypox. Monkeypox case in New York City. So I remember I talked about this when the first case popped up in, I think it was the UK, and it was a bit odd. Now we're starting to see a lot more of these cases pop up around the world. Monkeypox, from my limited research on monkeypox, it seems interesting that a number of cases have popped up in disparate areas of the world. It appears to be primarily contact-based transmission. So monkeypox, it has some relation to smallpox. Smallpox hasn't been vaccinated against since 1977, somewhere around there, where it was eradicated from the world. But I'm going back on some stuff that I read maybe a couple of years ago now. I remember they said they kept some smallpox somewhere and some vaccines of it somewhere, I think locked away up in Sweden or something, just in case something happened. But smallpox was eradicated from human beings, but monkeypox was still floating around. So when we're talking about infectious diseases, one of the cycle of infectious disease is called the reservoir, and it's where it kind of hides, I guess, where it sits. Sorry, a story just popped up there about monkeypox in the UK, and the other part of this monkeypox information that's coming out is sexual transmission. So they're talking about sexual transmission, that they're saying there was a like a gay pride march somewhere, I think in Spain or something, that they think might have been the super spreader event. That's why they're seeing it happen in disparate parts of the world, because they had all these people come together, touch and rub and do stuff, and then disappear out into the world. And now they're popping up with this monkeypox. How likely that is, I don't know, but yeah, could be. Yeah, so I mean, this is something we obviously need to keep our eye on. I don't think you're going to not be able to keep your eye on it soon, though. I think this is the next media froth with it's got fucking monkeypox. People buy our newspapers. Monkeypox. We're going to get it rammed down our throats. Not actual monkeypox, hopefully, but stories about it. Definitely something that we need to start thinking about, seeing that, as far as I know, anyone born after probably 19, well, let's see, they would have, I don't know at what age they stopped vaccinating kids against smallpox. But incidentally, smallpox vaccine also worked on monkeypox, so we didn't have to worry about it. Now monkeypox is coming back, so the smallpox vaccine might come back as well. But definitely anyone who was born after 1977 would not have received a smallpox vaccine. So you would be liable to get this if you came into contact with it. However, again, with my limited amount of research on monkeypox, it doesn't appear to be a overly deadly disease, and it appears to be more something that is it's a visually sort of disgusting disease. When you look at it, you're like, whoa, like that. But deadly to humans? Well, previously, no. Whether what we're seeing here is some other strain, something else come out, who knows? We'll have to wait and see on that. This is a little bit of an old report now, but the WHO has convened with an emergency meeting. I haven't seen the results of that meeting, so if anyone has, please let me know what they're thinking about it. I would imagine the WHO would come out and say, yep, we'll keep our eye on it, and that's about it at this point. I don't think they're going to be in any rush to lock anything down too quickly because, if we combine other factors that are happening in the world, I don't think that's going to be a pretty picture for a lot of countries. And at the time of this story, there was 37 cases and 71 under investigation. So, yeah, interesting. We'll see what happens with this little outbreak. But my opinion of this is, when it comes to any disease, there are vaccines that work against diseases and things like that. One of the best things and the easiest things that we can do as individuals, and going along the lines of being a self-responsible and self-reliant human being, is to look after our own health, whatever the way that is. Eat nutritious food, get outside into the sunlight, exercise, work out, like actually physically become capable as a human being. And as a side effect of that, you will have an improved immune system. This was probably one of my big bugbears with the latest C word sniffles thing. I was like reading many studies about how exercise actually created essentially an immune response to the sniffles that just happened. And I was like, where the fuck is the information coming out on that? Like, I can see the studies on it, and it makes sense to me because, I'm geared that way, and it's my bias anyway. I'm always going to look for something that says you should work out more. But I'm like, why aren't governments pumping that? Why aren't the governments saying, get out there, jog, run, get your 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week? It's not that hard. It's like 25 minutes walking every day, and you'll smash it. Maybe go for a jog every now and then, and lift something heavy up and down a couple of times. That's not rocket science, is it? That doesn't cost anyone anything. You can do that right now, and I suggest you do as well. Get out there, get in the gym, start working out, start moving your body. I don't want to hear no excuses from you either right now. I just heard someone go like, "Oh, but I can't afford the gym. So do some push-ups." We literally have gravity pushing down on us in 9.6 meters per second, and you've got your own body weight. You've got a gym. You've got a door. You've got a gym. You've got a body. You've got a gym. Jog on the spot if you can't go for a run. Walk around the block a couple of times. I don't know, whatever it is. Get out there, move, get out in the garden, do some gardening, some heavy lifting gardening. Yeah, that's it for today. So, a lot of stuff today, a lot of rambling today. As I said, it's 2 days worth of stuff, and I'm just skipped over a whole heap of things that I just can't bother talking about anymore. But yeah, as always, guys, if you've got any questions, please feel free to shoot them through to me. I love answering questions. I love having chats about stuff. Had a really good conversation with somebody about kind of prepping on a budget. We got to talking about water as well, how we store up water, and starting to think about that sort of stuff. The whole point of this is encouraging people to become more self-reliant, more prepared human beings, or as somebody probably in my father's or grandfather's day would have said, a human being. Just a normal human being. Somebody who's functional, somebody who can actually do shit. Somebody who's ready for the inevitable crises that life will throw at you. All right, that's not crazy. That's not weird at all, despite many people telling me that for years now. That's actually sane and rational. And that's really what I'm trying to be in the world, is a sane, rational human being. Look at things that happen in the world, go, what effect is that going to have on us? Or what example does that give us? Could that happen here? Probably. All right. Until next time, gang, stay safe, keep prepping, and Semper Paratus. Thanks for watching.